Well, a couple things. One, it almost seems that the haiku is a, here I go, a metaphor
Okay.
for how we've sequestered, that we've had to do with much less, something much more concentrated, where we've, I mean, I speak for myself, but, where I've kind of reevaluated, from the most intimate things to the most transcendent things. So haiku just seems in a way like kind of the perfect vehicle for that right now.
Cool. Yeah, good. And maybe next year something completely different will be happening in our lives, and we'll say, oh, haiku's the perfect vehicle for this. Or maybe we'll be saying, I don't know, sonnet. Elizabethan sonnets are the perfect vehicle for this. We'll see. I mean, that's one of the fun things about literature in general, is you keep coming back to it. And actually, it's funny, I've been writing about Salinger and Catcher in the Rye, and there's that, where Holden talks about how you keep coming back to the museum and the display is the same, and there's the, whatever it is, the Eskimo women, and there's the canoe and so forth. And you're always different, but it's always the same. Yeah, maybe it's like that. We'll see. Good. What else? Yeah. Hi, Barbara.
Okay, Dean. So I been so inspired by this haiku classes we've had. I decided to just start writing my own. So I write a haiku every morning. I want to write one every day of this year.
Wow.
I've learned,
really good.
And I've worked back. I mean, I have like maybe 2 weeks now, or 2 or 3 weeks. But what I find when I'm working on an idea, I have to really refine the use of words to create the feeling with less kind of stuff around it, and still get the whole thing I'm trying to express, which is not just visual or oral or anything. It's really very meditative when it comes in the word sense for me, to illuminate and to uncover, take the shells off over and over.
Yes.
It's been wonderful.
Yes, and this is the thing, I used to say this when I taught English. I used to say this to my students all the time. The best exercise for any kind of writing, if you're going to write essays, if you're going to write medical reports, if you're, anything you're going to write, the best exercise is to write haiku. Because haiku makes you look at not only every word, every syllable you're using makes it just puts it under this intense light. And you realize, I know I find that this happens when I write haiku, is that it makes me realize how kind of slapdash and careless I've been. And I'm more careful with words than most people, but still relatively how kind of careless and unconscious I've been in the use of words comparatively. Whereas when you get down to haiku, you cannot miss a syllable. One syllable different, and the whole thing, it pops, it works, or it it collapses. So are you going to share some with us, Barbara?
I knew that was going to come up.
I'll get them. I'll be here Sunday to do that. We just sheared our animals today, and I'm just a little exhausted, but they're upstairs by my bed. But I will bring them down next time.
Box.
No, they aren't. I'll bring them.
Kristen will go get them. She looks very energized.
She does. I need to get my steps in too.
I'm sorry, to get your what?
I need to get my steps in too.
Yeah, there you go. Is that okay? Is that okay, Barbara? Come on.
Maybe. They're really good. You can be carefree about it. She's always trying to get me to be more less precious about my art. It's a good exercise in it. In the meantime, don't time me.
She'll go get him. Let's go up there.
Yeah, good. So actually, your timing's very interesting, because I was thinking, we've spent several Sundays now reading other people's haikus. I think it's about time for us to start writing our own and sharing them. I can't make anyone do that. What I used to do, again, when I taught school, is I'd have everyone bring in one haiku and hand them in to me anonymously without the names on the papers. And then I would read them just to take out the personal feelings of embarrassment / pride, all of that. And then I would read them to the class, and then the class would workshop them. But I think, we're a little more mature than the 16-year-olds I was dealing with then. I think we can deal with doing these non-anonymously. So next time, everyone please bring, one good haiku from each person is, more than we'll have time probably to go through. So Barbara, you got one to share with us?
Okay, I'm new at this, so
yeah.
So I gave titles too. So This was the second one I wrote. It's called Soft Fortitude. Outrageous wind, a broken flower stem hangs on past the whoosh.
Okay. Again.
Can you read it again?
Yeah, read it again. Well, we always read haiku twice at least, and read it so that we can very clearly hear. This is in 3 lines?
Yes.
Yeah, so read it so we can very clearly hear the 3-line structure.
Outrageous wind, a broken flower stem hangs on past the whoosh.
One more time, please.
Oh, Dean, I got other ones, Dean.
No, it's good.
No. Don't change the subject.
But
we're drilling into. We're going to drill into this.
It's soft fortitude. I was
soft fortitude.
Yeah. Outrageous wind, a broken flower stem hangs on past the whoosh.
Okay, so talk to me, class. What are you getting here? What's the situation?
For me, it's very visual. I can see the broken flower stem. It's hanging on, and that word whoosh, just immediately I had that sense of the outrageous wind.
Yeah.
It was kind of this, and the title even, this outrageous wind, but the stem is just hanging on.
Good. What else? What else is this doing for you? Notice I'm not asking you, is this good? Is this bad? I'm asking you, what is it doing?
Right. Because that is art.
What is it doing?
It's interesting because I live in the artist's home area, so I get to see some of these. So in the Northwest here, the stems are really saturated, like they're almost that like kind of opaque, where you could see when they make that crease, they just kind of like hang like this. It's very weird. It's very actually like morbid in some ways, but so it's really like vulnerable when they like flush in the wind. It's almost like, how is that thing not breaking off? It's like these little tiny like ventricles of like stem are holding the thing onto itself. It looks like that's because it's still like spring is so wet here. That's why it's. Oh,
so when you say saturated, they're full of water.
Yeah, in my visual, I kind of see that just like, again, because it's in the area where she might have seen it too. There's one in particular I have my eye on actually outside that I think is what she wrote it about. Okay, now I have a question
Teacher's going to pick me apart.
No. I have a question for everyone except for Barbara and Kristen. You can't respond to this. What kind of flower is it? What are you seeing?
I visualized something like a Gerber daisy, that would have kind of a long shaft, and then when it kind of toppled in the wind, it was still hanging from the shaft. That's what I saw.
Okay. Anyone else?
I was visualizing a tubular stem also. I didn't get as far as Gerber daisy though, but I saw that those sort of thick, saturated with water, the color of celery. And I know exactly what you mean when they crease and bend and they don't break. And I loved outrageous wind. Those. Good.
Anyone else see a specific kind of flower or a color, even a specific color of flower? I was getting something yellow.
Yeah,
not a daisy. I was getting more like a dandelion or something. Again, that doesn't mean it's right. It's just what I saw for some reason. Now, question for you, Barbara. When you say outrageous wind, what made this wind outrageous? What is the actual experience? Because remember, we've said this before, haiku is a snapshot of experience. Okay? What is the actual experience that you had in that moment that made you conclude that the wind was outrageous?
First of all, we have a lot of really strong gusts that come out of nowhere. Right. And they can't be stopped. They tumble trees. They're just really, they're their own person. You can't stop them. And I think some things that are that kind of powerful in nature come across to me as outrageous in a good way. It's just outrageous as that, it's that powerful.
That is a good word though, you're right. I just started dissecting rage inside of that.
Rage.
Rage.
Right.
It's like righteous rage.
Right.
That was my only second one, Dean. So I mean, learning a lot.
Cool.
Some of mine get really political. Some of mine get really kind of, a lot of stuff being written. It's my first time trying it, and I love I've always loved linguistics and I love language, but what I actually love about haiku is I have to hone it down to really something minimal.
Right.
That says a lot.
Right. Now, on that topic of honing things, usually haiku favors short, blunt, Anglo-Saxon words. If you're into linguistics, you know this. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but English has two main sources. First is from the old Germanic through Anglo-Saxon, and that tends to be these short, blunt words. Dog, earth, sky, fire, and then all the words for the bodily things, guts, blood, piss, shit. Those were not quote unquote dirty words. They were all the words there were, right? Then in 1066, we get the Battle of Hastings, the Norman invasion. The Normans kick the butts of the Anglo-Saxons. They become the rulers. They bring their language with them, what we now call Old French, which is Latin derived, which has its own vocabulary for everything. And coming from Latin, everything is more polysyllabic. So instead of guts, they have intestines. Instead of shit, they have, excrement, right? Instead of dog, they have canine and so forth. And we get both of these vocabularies mixed. This is why, English has a much bigger vocabulary than most of the other languages in the world. It's got all these accretions from other languages, but this is the two main word stocks from the Anglo-Saxon and the Old French. But because now the Frenchies become the ruling class, well, a couple of things happen. One is almost all the words that we have for pertaining to governmental system, the judicial system, the military, they're all French words. Look at the words for, right, all the military ranks. Corporal, general, lieutenant, right? And then the groups of them, bataillon, right? It's all French. And then in the judiciary, right? The défendant, le plaintif, right? Le juré, right? It's all French. It's all French. And government, parlement, so forth. It's all French. And also it meant that the polite words, right? If you're an Anglo-Saxon serf, still talking your more earthy language, you're down toiling at the bottom of the hill, picking potatoes. Now you're picking your potatoes for the baron, for le baron, right? Who lives up on the castle on the top of the hill. And once a year at Christmas, you're invited up there to, right, drink some wassail and toast the health of the baron, right? And then you've had a few too many, and you look around and you say to your peasant buddy, "Oh man, I got to take a piss." But you don't say that to the baron because he speaks this polite French language. You say, "Excuse me, I have to go to what's that word? Urinate." Right. So this is how, first of all, this is how dirty words were how certain words became dirt. What a puzzle. Isn't that weird? How did some words get dirt on them? Right? The whole concept of dirty words is so weird, right? But it goes back so long. We were so little when our parents told us, "Oh, don't say those words in public. Use these words," right? That we don't question it. But this is where it comes from historically. But it also means that to be fancy, it means that, who read was the upper classes. The lower classes were illiterate for the most part. So writing became, it favored the French derived words, and from before that, through the French, the Latin derived, the polysyllabic words. So this is why one of the things that when you read older language, older English, that makes it more kind of challenging and less, and often very kind of dusty and archaic sounding, is that it uses long words. And this is what my students would do without even thinking about it. When they would start writing their essays, they would always use the longest. Given a choice between a short word and a long word, they would take the long word every time. Because it sounds smarter, quote unquote. It sounds more intellectual. Right? This is all ringing a bell? Okay, right. So I would have to work overtime at showing them what happens if every time you have a choice between a long word and a short word, you use a short word. What if we turn the clock back to 1065, turn the calendar back to just before the Norman invasion, and pretend that all we have is the Anglo-Saxon word stock in English. Then we get, hold on a second, hang on. Where's Hemingway? Farewell to Arms.
I'll find out.
Okay. Okay, I was looking for a book. Whoops. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, my lovely assistant. Okay, and we get this. Here's a farewell to arms, the opening paragraph. In the late summer of that year, we lived in a house in a village that looked across the river and the plain to the mountains. Okay, that's the first sentence. In the bed of the river, there were pebbles and boulders, dry and white in the sun, and the water was clear and swiftly moving and blue in the channels. Troops went by the house and down the road, and the dust they raised powdered the leaves of the trees. The trunks of the trees, too, were dusty, and the leaves fell early that year, and we saw the troops marching along the road, and the dust rising, and leaves stirred by the breeze falling, and the soldiers marching, and afterward the road bare and white except for the leaves. Okay, you hearing that? Okay, what are you getting from that, Barbara?
All dumb words.
No.
Yeah, no fancy words. No long words.
Yet still super descriptive, like to the T. Very cool.
Yes.
But how do you do that with haiku? He got a whole like paragraph, man.
His sentences are huge.
Yeah, and by the way, just before we get to that, I want to point out, not only are the words as plain as possible, the punctuation. There is as little, the punctuation is as sparse as possible. You know, you've got periods, it's, if like you force him, like, you twist his arm, he'll put in a comma once in a while. You can go pages and pages at a time. You'll never see a freaking semicolon. Semicolon is way too fancy, way too abstract.
So if you had him as a student,
yeah.
I mean, that would be massive run-on sentence.
No. There's nothing run on there. There's nothing run on. I'm having flashbacks now. This is exactly the conversations I've been having with my students. Okay, what does run on mean? Run on is a technical thing. Run on is when you have two, it doesn't mean long. Run on has nothing to do with length. Run on means you have two independent clauses joined together without a conjunction or a semicolon. Here's a run on sentence. I fell, she laughed. That's a run on. I fell, she laughed. If it's just those four words with no punctuation except the period at the end. To make it no longer a run on, we have to say, I fell, comma, and she laughed. Or I fell, semicolon, she laughed. That's a run on. Run on has nothing to do with length. Oh God, what book is it?
In Our Time?
No, there's something I used to cite.
Sorry.
Something else I used to cite that had, God, it was a sentence that went on for like 11 pages or something and was not a run-on. It's perfectly constructed. So run-on has nothing to do with length. Okay, what prompted you to say that was the last sentence there, which goes on quite long, and I'm going to read it again. And I want you to ask yourself, why does he make this one the length that it is? And listen not only to the length, but listen to the rhythm. The trunks of the trees too were dusty, and the leaves fell early that year, and we saw the troops marching along the road, and the dust rising, and leaves stirred by the breeze falling, and the soldiers marching, and afterward the road bare and white except for the leaves. Why does it have that length and that rhythm? What's he describing?
There's a tremendous sense of movement.
Yeah, but specifically, what's moving?
It's the whole walking of the troops.
It's the whole walking of the troops.
And the dust.
On the dusty road, on the road.
And the dust, and the troops come, they approach, and then they keep going, they go past, they disappear into the distance, and then there's just
the white road.
The white road and the leaves. We get that entire movement. And that rhythm, that length of that's a long process. It needs a long sentence. The sentence sounds like the thing it describes. Okay? The sentence sounds like, this is music, Kristen. This is music.
Right. And that term slipped my mind, like for the windmill, when you write, when you compose, and it actually has the sound of the windmill, and then the lyricist is singing about the windmill. And I don't know which Schubert piece is until I forgot.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. There you go. But now do this without the benefit of actual musical notes, without instrumentation. Can you do it all with words, right? So this is what makes Hemingway at his best. He's not always at his best, but this is what makes him at his best brilliant. This is what makes him important. Was doing this, and so we're now living in the post-Hemingway world. We can't get away with fancy bullshit anymore, unless there's a reason for it. It doesn't mean everyone's got to sound like Hemingway's voice. Nabokov, let's say, right? One of my other favorite guys, Nabokov, who wrote, Lolita and Pale Fire. Oh my God, right? Completely different voice, completely much more, he uses fancy words, but they're always there for a reason. They're always there because nothing else will work. They're always the right word. Okay.
That's kind of blowing my mind, because I used to always think that, just even subconsciously, that the longer the word, the more precise the word, and therefore the more minimalist, ironically, the word, because it was more specific.
Nope.
You are finally getting me to the point where I'm going to release all the smart words, just go back to basics.
Yeah. No, and as a matter of fact, generally speaking, it's not always the case, but longer words coming from Latin through French are often more abstract. They're less specific. They're less, again, we're talking about those dirty words. Why does the word we use for vulgar or obscene, dirty, specific, what does it have to do with dirt? They were associated with the peasants who worked in the dirt. Okay, they were close to the earth. They were close to concrete things. The baron who lived up on the hill was literally farther away from the earth, and he was dealing with things like administrative policies, and he was, he was working with his accountant, adding up, how much money he was making off of the potatoes that the peasants were digging. So he was living more in a world of abstraction. So which sounds more like the event that it describes? Urinate or piss? Right? Piss sounds like piss. Piss. Right? That's not an accident. Watching my little now 5-year-old grandson when he first started to speak, and now we've got an 8-month-old who's trying to speak. What's the first word? Where does speech begin? Mama, mom, right? And almost every language, the word for mother has that M sound in it. Because where does that come from? It comes from nursing. Right?
Wow.
Right? Right? Yeah, it's got to be. So it's not only a matter of words being short or words being Anglo-Saxon, but words being specific, concrete, and sensory, right? Specific as opposed to general, concrete as opposed to abstract, sensory as opposed to cerebral, right? Give us something with one of the five senses. Something specific, right? Now, in the context of this whole discussion for the last 10 minutes, tell me about the word outrageous. Okay, first of all, which word stock does that come from?
French.
Yeah. Okay.
Just, yeah.
Right. So right away, that makes us we're a little bit on the alert now. We're a little bit, so we have to give it a closer look. Does it describe an experience of one of the five senses? Can you see outrageous or hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it?
Rage is what jumps out at me from that word.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
Rage is the most concrete part of it, because rage is a feeling. It's something we can feel. So there is that feeling in there. So the question that I would ask you as the writer is, what specifically did you see, hear, taste, touch, or smell that led you to the conclusion, wow, this wind is outrageous? Strong wind, sudden wind, cold wind. You used the word before, gust. Gust is a nice Anglo-Saxon, right, specific word. Is there a way you can give me more specifically, more concretely, the experience you had, and then let me conclude as the reader, boy, that's outrageous. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? And that's what Hemingway does. That's what Hemingway does. Let me read you something else from here, if I can find it. Okay. There's a part where his hero here, Frederick Henry, he gets injured. This is in the First World War, and he's an American who's fighting along with the Italians, and they get hit by some mortar fire, and his leg gets badly injured. All of this happened to Hemingway. So Hemingway was able to write about this. He knew what he was writing about. Let's see if I can find it. My old copy, which had everything marked up. Here we go. Nope, not it. Yes. Okay, so he's in the trenches. He's with his Italian buddies. I took out the knife, opened it, wiped off the blade, and pared off the dirty outside surface of the cheese. Okay, just listen to that sentence again. I took out my knife, opened it, wiped off the blade, and pared off the dirty outside surface of the cheese. Nothing special there, except that it's perfect. Right? Can you hear that? There's not a word you want to change. There's nothing you want to add or take away or make it, right? So simple, and so you're right there. Cavuzzi handed me the basin of macaroni. Start in to eat, tenente. Oh, they all call him tenente because it means lieutenant. Start in to eat, tenente. No, I said, put it on the floor. We'll all eat. Right, because he's the ranking officer there, so they're offered to let him eat first, right? So he doesn't say anything, oh, we were a band of brothers, this is the democracy of the dugout, we were all equals, right? Just, no, I said, put it on the floor, we'll all eat. Boom. And someone else says, there are no forks. What the hell, I said in English. I cut the cheese into pieces and laid them on the macaroni. Sit down to it, I said. They sat down and waited. Right, see, they're waiting because he's the officer. They sat down and waited. I put thumb and fingers into the macaroni and lifted. A mass loosened. Lift it high, tenente. I lifted it to arm's length and the strands cleared. I lowered it into the mouth, sucked and snapped in the ends and chewed. Then took a bite of cheese, chewed, and then a drink of the wine. It tasted of rusty metal. I handed the canteen back to Passini. Right? Okay, you still with me? Right? Step by step, moment by moment. And everything has the feel of taking about the same speed, the same rhythm as it actually does for the action to happen. I handed the canteen back to Passini. It's rotten, he said. It's been in there too long. I had it in the car. They were all eating, holding their chins close over the basin, tipping their heads back, sucking in the ends. I took another mouthful and some cheese and a rinse of wine. Something landed outside that shook the earth. 420, or Minenwafer, Cavuzzi said. There aren't any 420s in the mountains, I said. They have big Skoda guns. I've seen the holes. 305s. We went on eating. There was a cough, like a railway engine starting, and then an explosion that shook the earth again. This isn't a deep dugout, Passini said. That was a big trench mortar. Yes, sir. I ate the end of my piece of cheese and took a swallow of wine. But again, on the eating, can you picture exactly how they were eating this simple meal? Exactly. I ate the end of my piece of cheese and took a swallow of wine. Okay, now watch what happens next. There's no change in the matter-of-fact, moment-by-moment description. We're eating cheese and macaroni. Now something else is going to happen. Through the other noise, I heard a cough, then came the then there was a flash as when a blast furnace door is swung open and a roar that started white and went red and on in a rushing wind. I tried to breathe, but my breath would not come, and I felt myself rush bodily out of myself and out and out and out, and all the time bodily in the wind. I went out swiftly, all of myself, and I knew I was dead, and that it had all been a mistake to think you just died. Then I floated, and instead of going on, I felt myself slide back. I breathed, and I was back. The ground was torn up, and in front of my head, there was a splintered beam of wood. In the jolt of my head, I heard somebody crying. I thought somebody was screaming. I tried to move, but I could not move. I heard the machine guns and rifles firing across the river and all along the river. There was a great splashing, and I saw the star shells go up and burst and float whitely, and rockets going up, and heard the bombs, all this in a moment. And then I heard close to me someone saying, "Mamma mia, oh mamma mia." I pulled and twisted and got my legs loose finally and turned around and touched him. It was Passini, and when I touched him, he screamed. I'm going to stop there, and it goes on, and you see all the horrific damage that's been done to these men and their bodies. But what do you see about the way the language is used there? As we go from eating cheese to getting blown up and dying, having the near-death experience, right? You all got that? Near-death experience. I went out and floated. It floated in the wind. I went out and floated. Then I breathed and was back again. Exactly the way you always hear people describe these near-death experiences. But Hemingway knew, because it happened to him. But he describes it exactly the same way he describes eating cheese. Right? He doesn't say, and then it was a miracle, and then something incredible. And when we least expected it, something very violent happened. No. You just let us conclude that, right? I mean, he goes on with, these people with legs blown off and begging, please shoot me, because they're, right? But he never says, it was so horrific, it gave me nightmares, all which probably happened, right? But what happens in the moment, in the simplest, most eloquent possible language, which is usually the simplest thing that will describe the thing.
So this is like really parallel to your style of natural meditation, right? Because you're trying, it's very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is exactly right. Okay.
I really like that. Yeah.
Yes. Now you have made the connection. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, and actually, in a way, let's put the horse before the cart now. In a way, it starts with the naturalness of meditation, just being, right? That is complete simplicity, stripped down from everything. That's nothing. Then coming out of there, then you sit down, oh, now let's write a sentence. Now let's play a piece of music. Now let's engage in this business deal. Let's engage in this conversation I need to have with this person about a personal matter, a relationship matter or something. It works. The same principle works everywhere, which is what is the most streamlined, most effective way to do it, right? Now, does that mean, oh, when you're dealing with this person, this relationship thing, you say the thing in the most brusque possible manner, like Hemingway was saying it? No. In this case, that person may need more. You got to say something in a very circuitous way. You got to soften them up. You got to, praise them. Oh, listen. Oh, I so appreciated the way you did this, and you got to, give them 9 things they did well before you slip in the thing you really need to talk about that they screwed up. Whatever it is, it's everything that you do contributes to that in the most clean, streamlined possible way. More and more, that's what your life becomes. And in a way, to a certain degree, it kind of happens automatically because that's what meditation brings into your life. But the perception, the connection, Kristen, that you just made, when we see that consciously, yeah, we can cooperate with it. We can realize, oh, I can always lean more in that direction of Maharishi used to say it all the time, do less, accomplish more. Right? It's Occam's razor. It's applying Occam's razor to every aspect of our life. What is Occam's razor is, in logic and philosophy, what's the simplest, given this data set, given this set of circumstances, what's the simplest possible explanation? When there's multiple possible explanations, you assume the simplest one. So when there's multiple possible ways of dealing, all things being equal, unless there's a reason to go with the more complex, we go with the simplest. Okay. Now, the title of the haiku, you notice that usually haiku don't have titles. Okay. Usually haiku don't have titles. Okay. Okay. No, but it's great that you wrote that title, because now because that puts you and all of us in the position of seeing that, did this haiku convey to us the sense of, what did you say, what kind of fortitude?
Soft.
Soft fortitude. Did you all get that impression of soft fortitude without her having to tell us that?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's great. Yeah. Write the title and then throw it away.
Write the title being the goal in the most simplest form, then write it out. Tell the title.
Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. But start with an actual experience. You know, if you, in this, which you did in this case, you know, you've been walking around, you've been seeing these flowers. I mean, if you just started in the abstract, soft fortitude, let me come up with something to convey that, then it's not going to have the force. It's not going to have the reality, because you were not really there in that moment. Okay. So start with the moment, start with the experience, and keep asking yourself, what have I missed? What have I missed? Okay, I saw and also remember that, and this applies to every kind of writing, and also all these other things besides writing. Remember that the reader starts with a blank page, and you're in a sense, you're making a picture for the reader. You know, it's a picture and a soundtrack and a smell track, you know, aroma track and all of that. Let's just say, you know, a picture. You're making a picture for the reader. You have to make that picture brushstroke by brushstroke. Any brushstroke that you don't make, the reader's not going to get. So, for instance, if you wrote down on a piece of paper, you started and you wrote, "My mother," right? Every one of us here has a picture of their mother in their head. You've got this very detailed, very precise picture of your mother. And except for Kristen's mom, because she's here with us, none of the other of us know what your mom looks like. So if you write "my mom" on a piece of paper, it's very tempting to think, oh, now the reader is going to see my mom. The reader's not going to see your mom, right? I have a good friend of mine, my friend Phil, who's like my writing buddy. We've both been writing books for years, and we walk on the beach and we, you know, share our sad stories of what we're dealing with in our writing, and we you know, read each other's manuscripts and so forth. It's been going on since the 70s. And he was working on a novel once that was a semi-autobiographical novel. And all the characters had different names from the ones that they had in real life, except for the main character, the narrator, who was based on himself, has this college roommate who is this outrageous character. And this is in the early 60s. And my friend Phil he's straight. And this roommate of his, Elliot, was not just gay, but just flamboyant, outrageous, hilarious. You know, they had a big surprise birthday party for him once, and as he walked in, they all sang "God Save the Queen," and he was, I mean, and just Elliot was this huge, bigger than life character. And so Phil said to me, "Yeah, I've changed all the names except, of course, you know, Elliot has got to be Elliot." And I said, "Phil, this is the most important character. Give him any name in the world except Elliot. Because for you, Elliot is such a big presence that as soon as you write Elliot, you're seeing that it's evoking all that lifetime of experience you've had with Eliot, and the reader gets none of it. Okay, you've got to create it brushstroke by brushstroke while keeping it as simple as possible, right? Hemingway, this is what Hemingway at his best knows. He can't give us all the details, so it's what are the telling details? What's the most important detail, right? Hemingway never describes people's faces. Not because there's anything wrong with that, but I think he doesn't know how to. Or it's just he doesn't want to get into that. It's gonna start getting too complicated. So he just passed on that. In a way, it's a weakness. If you want to see faces, you have to read, you know, Edith Wharton or Nabokov or someone. So you start with the experience, and don't look for the Again, I'd find this when I was, you know, teaching school. The students would always, oh, I want the most amazing experience. The time that I won the big game, I did the final hockey save just before the buzzer, and we won, right? They want the extraordinary thing. No. The extraordinary thing felt like had a lot of juice in it for you because then you won the thing, or because you missed the save and you lost the thing and it was so devastating for you. Give us the most ordinary thing. Give us eating cheese. When you really get good at conveying eating cheese, then you can convey getting hit by mortar fire. But you got to get the eating cheese first. Okay, you see that? Yeah. So have a moment of this is everyone's homework now. Okay, so get your moment of experience. Go take a walk, right, or whatever, and just think of your eyes, ears, mouth, touch, everything. You're like a camera, right? You're taking these snapshots of moments of experience, right? Note them, write them down. Okay, what's happening here? And of course, haiku, you want ideally not only a specific moment of experience, but one that opens up has some resonance of satori, so some resonance of transcendence. But that's the advanced course. Don't worry about that too much for now. If you can get a concrete moment and ask yourself, what did I miss? Oh, part of it was seeing the color of the petals. I'm seeing that. I haven't helped my reader see that yet, right? What's the temperature of the air? Is there a way to convey that? What's the mood that I'm in? This gets tricky now because it's a little more subjective. If in doubt, stay with the more objective stuff, right? And notice what is Hemingway's, and also it's true of haiku writers, of the parts of speech, right? Noun, verb, adjective, adverb, preposition, whatever I left out, interjection. What is Hemingway's favorite part of speech and the haiku writer's favorite part of speech? And if you haven't noticed, you should be able to figure it out from everything we've been saying. You want things to be concrete. You want to convey as much as possible the experience and it's like the words are mediating between the reader and the experience, but you want those mediating words to as much as possible to disappear, right? I want to give you a rock. That's a noun. There's actually a famous line by who is it? Archibald MacLeish, I think. He says, poetry is a noun. All right? Poetry is a noun.
Wow.
Right? Poetry is a noun. You read Hemingway, you read this book, read A Farewell to Arms, which I really recommend. And you can see if he could eliminate all the verbs and adverbs and adjectives and prepositions and conjunctions, he would do it. He would just want to make it all nouns. Right? Listen to just this. Listen to I'm going to go back to the beginning, just read one or two sentences, and listen to the use of nouns and how even the words that are not nouns kind of sound like nouns, the way that he uses them. In the late summer of that year, we lived in a house in a village that looked across the river and the plain to the mountains. Right? You see, what are the key words? They're all nouns. Summer, year, house, village, river, plain, mountains. Right? In the bed of the river, there were pebbles and boulders. Look at that. Bed, river, pebbles, boulders, right? And then just the others are connective tissue. In the bed of the river, there were pebbles and boulders. And now finally we get to a couple of adjectives. Dry and white in the sun. Okay? Dry and white. Those are adjectives, but what do you notice about the particular adjectives? They're short, right? They're monosyllabic, they're Anglo-Saxon, and they're very specific and concrete. They're adjectives that feel like nouns. They're adjectives that feel like nouns, right? He doesn't say that the pebbles and boulders were beautiful, which is multisyllabic and French and subjective and abstract. He doesn't say they're beautiful. He doesn't say they're ugly, right? Dry and white in the sun, and the water was clear and swiftly, swiftly moving. I think that's the first adverb in the whole book. Swiftly moving and blue in the channels, right? You see what we got going here? Okay, so that's how you write haiku. Okay.
I just have like one quick, maybe slightly dumb question. I'm sorry.
Please. No, please.
So when I really like the words are in between you and the experience, right?
Yes.
So I think one of my thoughts was always that, this is a little self-centered of me, but the words were in between me and eliciting or pulling the same feelings from my audience as a performer, right? That I'm feeling. So is it not about it's more just trying to get that person to have their own set of feelings with that experience? Or is it trying to almost narcissistically get them into my feelings? Do I want them to feel the same thing? Or do I want them to feel their own set of things with that experience? Is that too nutty?
Yeah. I would say the second.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting you use that word narcissistic
Totally.
when you're talking about, oh, I'm feeling this, therefore everyone's got to feel this.
Right, yeah.
Right? But the thing is, even if you want them to feel what you felt, what's the most effective way to do that? Give them the experience that you had that made you feel that feeling.
Got it. Yeah, the most efficient, streamlined experience.
And then when they have if they have the feeling, it's genuine. It's firsthand. It's not secondhand. It's not because you've dictated to them, as the artist, this is what you're supposed to feel now. Right? I came across this. We're going to wrap this up in a minute. We're running over, but I've from time to time narrated audiobooks, and I was narrating this one audiobook, and it was a true story. It was an anecdote of the thing that really happened in this guy's life, and he was in this horrible traffic mishap, and the car went over the bridge, and his son drowned. And you're supposed to, as a narrator, you're supposed to pre-read this stuff so you know what's coming up, but I hadn't done it. And I came up to this thing and I was reading this thing, and I just started weeping, right? And I later read a thing in some like symposium of audiobook narrators, and they were talking about when you get like that, is it okay? Do you share the weeping? Do you share the fact of you having that emotion? And, you know, their conclusion, which is the same conclusion I came to, there was, no, don't give them my weeping, give them what I had the moment just before the weeping happened that made the weeping happen. Give them this thing happened, then the car, then the bridge, then the water, and let them have it themselves. Yeah.
Can I say something, Dean, real
quick? Yes, please.
Yeah, this reminds me in my first acting class with Anna DeVere Smith, South Coast rep, she said, don't cry, let the audience cry.
There you go. Don't cry, let the, you were with Anna DeVere Smith, wow.
Before anybody knew who she was, they told me, oh, this is beginning acting, and she's a teacher from ACT, and I'll tell you about it sometime.
Yeah,
I learned a lot from her.
I'll
never forget a few things she said. That was one of them. Don't cry. Let them feel it. Let them get there.
Yep. There's an early Sean Penn film. It's called Bad Boys, and he's kind of a sympathetic kind of rebel without a cause type, and he winds up he's locked up. He's in prison, and one day the warden brings him into his office and sits him down and tells him they've had this communication from the outside, and that his girlfriend, that Sean Penn's girlfriend, was attacked and raped. And the warden says to him, well, how do you feel? And he says, I just feel like crying. And he doesn't cry. Right. And like, that's what makes the scene strong. Like, you want to say, come on, man, cry, let it out. And the fact that he doesn't is, you know, this is all less is more. This is haiku, is less is more. All right. So, see you next Sunday with our haiku in hand. You know what? If you'd rather have it done anonymously, it's just occurred to me, maybe this is the way we should do it, is email me your haiku before next Sunday's session. Okay, right? Dean@deanslider.com. Dean@deanslider.com. Just email me yours before the session, and then we can do it anonymously the way I used to do in my classroom, and we can all be relaxed about it. Okay?
I don't want anonymity on mine.
Tough.
Okay. See you later.
See ya. Okay. Thank you, everyone. May all beings swiftly be happy. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Enjoy.